As National Flamingo Day is approaching, I thought it would be fun to paint a flamingo. I put together a limited palette for us to use. I'll put the details in the description. So let's get started. So I'm going to begin by adding a little bit of clean water using my flat brush and then introducing a very light wash of the green water. And it's going to be in a regular wash because I want to show the water texture, the ripples. So I'm just going in and dabbing in a few of those horizontal lines. And I don't want the water to be the focus of this. I really want the flamingo to pop. But I am going to add a little bit of salt here just so we get some interesting blending or interesting texture. You want to add that salt while that wash is damp and then just let it sit. So staying out of its way, I'm going and adding the yellow of the eye and letting that dry so I can go back on and add the black. But in the meantime, I'll use where I see the warmth on the back of the bird, I'm going to go ahead and add that in. And then on the very edges, go in with my coral and let it spread and bleed. And I want the flamingo to have a very textured body. I don't want it to be very smooth. So you can see I'm making kind of short, abrupt little marks, and I'm changing up the color depth as I go. Just follow along the neck on the edge and then go ahead and spread it with that water. And you have to work kind of quickly because you don't want the hard edges to form as you're going. And then just make a judgment call. Do the edges need to be darker? If so, just go in with a little more pigment. If you got it right the first time, you're good to go. And now to show the feathers, I'm going to pick a few of them and go in with more realistic kind of a brush stroke, but now I'm just spreading that color around so that I get that variety of tones. And I don't really want to overpaint this area. I want it to look very watercolory and painterly. So again, I'm using those short strokes and I'm continually looking across the flamingo to decide where do I need darker values. And just mixing this into the other side of the neck where I had started before. And you can see more of these little dab spots because I want it to feel textured. The beak had a little bit of that orangey pink. So again, I'm letting those watercolors do their beautiful blending and trying to connect it to the head, leaving that white area around the eye. So I'll let that dry and come back and do the tip of the beak with the dark later. And so again, moving kind of quickly, I'm trying to get in more color in this area and having it look like it's blending in naturally. And I'm just using the side of my brush with kind of a feathery technique, no pun intended there, but just a very light stroke. And I'm trying to remove those hard edges as I go, just blending things. And switching to my smaller brush, I'm going to get a few of those details now that that area is dried. And this is the mixture of the three primaries that we're using to look like a black, even though it isn't really black. And that's going to feel very natural. And just using a very diluted mixture of that, I'm going in around the eye to show some of the little wrinkles that I can see in the when I zoom into the reference photo. And there's a little bit of pock marks in the beak, so I'm just trying to pick those up. Again, he's not super smooth. He's got some texture. And here I felt like I didn't go in dark enough, so I'm just glazing over with some of this shadowy color. And here, sorry, I was painting off camera, so I had started the legs using that diluted mixture that I was using for the beak. And now I'm going in with a top layer to give, again, some more value. But you can see I blend them in if I have a hard line because I want it to look like the light is hitting them. And so I'm getting some darks and some lights and some blending, which I'm very happy with. And as I'm nearing the end, I'm feeling like I don't have enough of the values represented. I have a lot of midtones. So I'm going in now with some shadowy colors to try to pick up some of that depth that was missing. And again, you see this kind of irregular forms. That's intentional. And I'm just trying to show that he's made up of feathers. Still struggling to integrate the head to the beak. I went in kind of heavy with that pinkish color, the corally on his head. So I'm just trying to integrate these two so they work as one. And the darker it gets, it's feeling more integrated, which is great. You can splay out your brush and use a dry brush effect, which is really just having pigment, not a lot of water, on a feathery brush, and that gives you a really nice texture because it'll pick up the grain of the paper. So I'm doing that throughout the bird. And then as the area is dry, lighter, you can go in, keep layering on the same color that you used to get more detail. And here I'm just removing the salt because I can already tell my background is too light and the overall composition feels flat. So I'm adding additional ripples to the water. But again, they're going in as a medium tone. And so for the next few minutes, I'll struggle trying to pick up the background tones to balance with the flamingo. And if you decide to paint, that's kind of up to you. How much detail do you want to add to the background? Is it a part of your overall painting, or do you just want to focus on the flamingo, which is also legitimate? So here I just thought it would be more interesting to add some of that French ultramarine. It ties all the colors together because I had used it in the mixes, so it's nice to represent it on its own, and it does add a little more interest to the background. But what I'm doing here is really just trying to pick up some depth, get that flamingo to pop off the background, which it wasn't doing. So I'm trying to go darker without trying to go in and change the entire background. I'd be biting off more than I can chew. So I'm just trying to define some areas that can help. And I'm looking across the composition to say, well, if I add it here, I need to go horizontally and make sure that that feels realistic. If I had just painted the area between the neck and the body, dark, it wouldn't make any sense if I didn't have some to the left and the right. So again, you're just constantly looking over your work and saying, where do I need something? And it's feeling a little bit more integrated now. The beak was a little soft, so I'm just going in with another layer. I was kind of rough with my edges, so I wanted to give it just a little more pop. And while I have that color out, again, I'm just trying to make sure that I've got some of those darkest darks, which I felt was a little bit lacking. So by doing this, you're really just adding that depth. You always want to try to have the darkest darks, the lightest lights, and then midtones in between. And just blending as I go so that they make sense. And then now I decide, oh, now that I've done that, I feel like the flamingo needed a little more color to balance off with the beak. So I'm just adding a little more as a glaze over the whole neck and making sure that I pick up that texture that I had taken time to create with my dry brushing. So I'm putting some irregular marks on there. And again, the same area with the shadow, I need to make sure that I represent that accurately. So I'm just going in as one thing darkens, often you have to darken something else. So finally, I feel like the head and the nose are working together. And now I can go in with a really strong pigment and just try to pick up that dry brushy effect again that I had painted over when I glazed. And in addition to adding texture, it also allows me to follow the contour of the neck so that you know which direction it's going. And using our little trick of painting something dark behind makes something pop off. So that's what I did down in this area to have that leg pop off. And now I've decided that's probably the effort that I want to put in toward this. I'm pretty happy with the way it came out. I hope you enjoyed seeing me paint the flamingo and that you'll try one yourself. As always, thanks for watching. See you next time.